Amid all that's going on, President Trump has decided to wade into South African race politics. While evidently watching cable news last night, the president tweeted at one network, quote, "I've asked Secretary of State Pompeo to closely study the South Africa land and farm seizures and expropriations and the large-scale killing of farmers. South African government is now seizing land from white farmers." South Africa is currently considering a plan to allow land seizures without compensation as a way to address old apartheid policies. And statistics show that violence against South African farmers is actually drastically decreasing. Per the South African Mail and Guardian, this is all part of a racist conspiracy theory that has long been a rallying cry among white nationalists, and the roots of it can be traced back to an extremist, far right-wing group who describes itself as preparing for a coming violent race revolution to prevent a, quote, white genocide. The group has reportedly met with far-right groups and media contacts in the U.S. in an effort to garner support. The South African government has responded to Trump's tweet, quote, "South Africa totally rejects this narrow perception, which only seeks to divide our nation and reminds us of our colonial past." So he divides our country, and now he's working on others. Eddie Glaude and then Sam. Jump in. Well, Eddie, you first.
Well, this is consistent. Look, the only words we get out of Donald Trump's mouth about predominantly African countries or African-descended countries is that they're S-hole countries. Or in this instance, he's really trafficking in conspiracy theories to kind of, in some ways, feed red meat to his base. This is nonsense. It's silly. But it's consistent with the kind of cultural warrior that he is. Because at the same time that he's doing this with regards to South African white farmers, I think 2 of them perhaps might have been killed in some instance, with the majority of folks who have been subject to any kind of violence, and this is non-white farmers in this instance. He's also, shall we say, playing the card with regards to the Molly Tibbet murder, this horrific this horrific murder in Iowa. He's saying that this is a result of not having the wall. Here, this is a morally debased man who will do anything to protect himself and to divert attention from the fact that he has been noted as a non-indicted co-conspirator in a felony. So this is just an example of how bad he is as a human being.
I think it's even a little bit more pernicious than that, because here we have a case where it's pretty evident that he has no clue what the policy is, or at least he didn't have a clue what the policy was. And he weighed in on it based on a cable news segment that he saw vis-a-vis Tucker Carlson. If you think about it, if you step back, that the president is watching Fox News and decides, you know what, I'm going to weigh into world affairs like this on Twitter, that's a really odd way to conduct international diplomacy. And yeah, the policy is, or what Tucker was talking about, has roots in white nationalist online forums. Basically, it's a relic of the early 20th century when land was taken from black farmers. They're trying to reverse those wrongs. It wasn't really moved fast enough in recent years, and so they're trying to actually get land back to black farmers. There are debates over whether and how they're doing it, but you know, the idea that this is reverse racism against white farmers ignores basically a century of history. I just think it's really damaging for Trump to weigh in on policy in this matter. And I will note one thing. This is the first time as president that he's tweeted about Africa, or use the word Africa in a tweet, and for him to do it in this fashion is particularly gross.
So predictions yesterday morning was that he would jump into the arms of Fox hosts and that he would tweet about a foreign country, trying to deflect. But strangely, the news headlines are so big and so serious, and the facts are so strong that the deflections don't appear to be working. Coming up, investigators in New York subpoena Michael Cohen for information on its investigation into the Trump Foundation. We'll talk to the Washington Post reporter who won a Pulitzer for his reporting on the Trump Foundation, David Fahrenthold. Morning Joe is coming right back.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.